Hello and welcome to episode 6 of Rewriting the Fates. Today I want to continue what we started last time, and that is the editing phase of this process. And in this phase, we are really honing in what we want this piece to sound like, tying together all of the different thoughts that I had when I first wrote out the draft, and just making it sound like a cohesive piece of music. And last time we started over here at the finale of the piece because I wanted to give it some more power. And that's what I did when I changed the instrumentation, which I also did last time. And I want to continue by working my way backwards into this major section. Now, this section itself is kind of broken into 3 parts. We have this initial oboe solo here that introduces the major variation on the theme, and then we have this second section here where a lot more parts join in, and we have this harmonization of this melody and just kind of develop it a little bit more. And then, of course, the third section, which is our march section, that foreshadows what's to come in this big climactic moment. And as of right now, I don't have many specific things that I know I want to try, but I know some ideas of what I think is wrong, and that's where I'm going to start. First of all, there's some balance issues, particularly in this last section. We have this giant brass unison here, all the way from the trumpet 1 down into the tuba, and even the contrabass. My point is there's a lot of instruments on this unison, and it's just so overpowering. You can't hear the main theme at all. And yes, the counter melody here, the unison, is at this moment more important. You should still be able to hear all the parts. I'm thinking I might try at this moment getting rid of these 8th notes because they set the mood, but the mood's been set at this point, and we're shifting gears. And I think it might make sense to give some of these instruments that are playing essentially just texture, maybe the main melody. So we have essentially a 2-part ensemble here. Half of it's playing the melody, half of it's playing the counter melody. I think that might work. In general, I just need to balance the section more, whether that means adding more people into the melody or taking away parts from the unison and putting them onto something else, which might also work. I also just want to add some more development in here. Of course, the melody adds a harmonization, but the melody itself never changes. There's nothing new at any point once the initial material is added. So I just want to make it a little bit more varied, make it have a little more nuance, and maybe add a little more going on, and just tie it in to the section before it and the section after it a little bit more. So I'm going to get started on that, and I'll get back to you when I have a better idea of what I'm doing and have experimented a little bit with some of these things I've been talking about. Now, what do you think of that editing job I did? I wanted to make sure you guys could see what I was writing, because I come to realize that the score was so big that it was very difficult to see the notes on the page when I played a long section like that. And also, now that it's so long, the score started to lag quite a bit when I play a section like this with so many parts. So I thought I'd give that a try, and hope it worked out all right. Now let's get into the music. I'm going to be honest, I didn't change all that much, and I probably will want to do more on this in the future. But for this pass, I'm pretty satisfied. First of all, I did what I said I was going to do in this last section, and I switched all the parts that were eighth notes previously. These parts here, the piccolo, the flute 2, these clarinets down here, and I just gave them melody. Some of them I gave the harmony, and it balances this out so much better between the melody and the counter melody. I do quite like how that turned out. Now, a lot of my thought process with this section has sort of been refined quite a bit with some of these changes. And if you remember way back to the original version of this, there was that dissonant minor third, and I got rid of it because it just was a little awkward, especially with how I rewrote it. Which means I lost all of the dissonance and, feeling that something was still wrong. And I wanted to bring some of that back, and I did it a lot more subtly this time. And so what you saw starting in the upper left corner of your screen was this timpani line right here. And this just outlines a fifth. And of course, that's going to be the fifth of the one chord, the B flat major triad. And that's because all of this melody sort of rests in that area. It's all just passing tones to and from notes in that chord, except for these two beats right here. And so, by outlining this fifth, you kind of assume that this is outlining a major triad, except in this melody, sort of, I never actually play the third of this triad. And then to balance it out a little more, the second repeat, I added the euphonium, tuba, and contrabass. And again, that was just for balance. But I do like the sound of these low voices. It feels dark, and it kind of hints as to what's to come. And of course, when all those voices switch to this counter melody, which is also a nod to the counter melody from the very beginning of the piece, I bring in the chimes again. And I give the chimes the melody. And if you remember from what we wrote at the very end of the piece, the chimes kind of signal fate approaching again. And so here we have the same fifth line, but right at the end, joined with the timpani to show that it's the same line that's been there the whole time. We sort of outline the same thing that was going on initially, and then we morph it into the chime melody that's to come, adding that minor third. And of course, this is all a unison in all of these other voices, a unison on B flat. And so you just have the chimes with the minor third, so there's no actual dissonance, but it instantly changes the mode that we're in, and brings you into the new key here. And I just think it just adds such a nice transition into there, and it brings back the original feeling of what I wanted this section to feel like as well. I do think, however, I could do a little more with it. It still does feel a little bit happy, or a little bit too happy. And again, there's still some, like for instance, marimba doesn't have anything written right now. I just think there's still something I could do with it, but I'm gonna let it sit like this for a bit and see how I feel. Now, the other thing I did happens just before this section, in this chorale type of thing that has the trumpet melody echoed by the horns, and I added chimes here as well, just in the quarter notes on this changing pitch that kind of outlines all the big changes in the movement here. I didn't actually show this in my video, but it's something I added, and I just want to add more of this chime because I feel like the chime really gets this ringing bell feel that encapsulates the feeling of the piece, and I'm going to keep adding it in more places, and that's why I added a whole line just for chime. That being said, that was all I had planned for initially for this video, but looking at it now, it's just around 10 minutes or less depending on how I edit this down. So I guess I can do a little bit more, and I actually think, just thinking about it right now, I want to add some chimes in this first section and maybe rework some things, because this is a section that really set the mood of the piece for me, and I'm ready to adapt it into what the piece has become so that it sets the mood of the piece for everyone else that listens to it. And that means adding chimes. I'm thinking about adding chimes for this counter melody thing here. That's in the flutes. I honestly feel like this section is quite good already. I don't know. We'll see what I decide. But I'm going to do that, and I'll get back to you when I am done. And a warm welcome back. As I said, I didn't really do all that much work. Maybe at most an hour. And a lot of that was just listening to it back and deciding what I wanted to do. So, let's go over what I did. First of all, I did exactly what I said. I wrote a chime part for the beginning here. And it's just echoing the timpani. And the reason I did this is I wanted it to set up the end as well as I could. And what I did there was in the major section, foreshadowed the chimes coming back in with the timpani. And now I want to set up that expectation at the very beginning, where the timpani plays this descending triad. I let it play twice, and then I added the chimes in. So that sets up this expectation that we get timpani playing a pattern, and then later chimes will come in. And then, from there, we need to set up the expectations of what chimes really mean. I'm doing this super subtly here. Everything the chimes plays in this section is doubled by a number of different instruments. So at the same time the chimes enters here, so do all the winds, which means the chimes are quite covered. However, by the nature of the chimes, they're heard, just because that's what the instrument's like. And once we get to this big explosion moment, I have the chimes still doubling the timpani, but it's on this counter line, which is doubled by all of the low voices. And so that shows where the chime sits as an instrument within this piece. It goes with the low voices that are playing this menacing counter melody. And of course, this continues by finally exposing the chimes so that it can play its own thing all by itself, right at this eruption of the storm as we're breaking through into the eye. And it just plays sort of an arpeggio that's a similar shape, not quite, because the actual melody goes up and peaks at the second beat, but it's a similar shape as the melody, and it just kind of shows that it's capable of doing that sort of arc. And then of course I brought it back on this triplet. Let me just play this last few measures of this for you so you can hear what it sounds like. It's super unsettling, and I kind of like it. I'm gonna let it sit for a bit, decide if I want to keep it. I think I probably will. But it's a tritone with what the bass clarinet has right up here at its solo, because this is of course a G to the C sharp. And it's super dissonant, super unsettling, but it also isn't really heard at the same time. This chime hits, and you hear the chime hit, but this bass clarinet kind of emerges from the sound, so it's kind of almost more of a melodic tritone rather than harmonic. It's eerie, and it really sets the mood for this super eerie section that's to come. Now, the other thing I did is I decided to jump way back to the end and do a little bit of changing. One thing I didn't talk about that I did off camera is I changed up this melody a little bit. I didn't like how late in the melody this first beat added 16th notes. So I brought it in here, and it changes the melody up a little bit, and it just feels a lot smoother. Oh, I also added 16th notes to the last beat of this measure as well, just to keep the energy moving and flowing. Because I felt like it kind of reached a standstill at that last beat for no reason, because the energy is as high as it's ever been at this moment. But anyway, going back to the chimes, I also just now changed this chime rhythm to make it undeniably the main theme, because I felt like it was still hinting at it, but this is the point that I want it to be known what the chimes stand for. And so now it is undeniably the main theme of the piece. I changed the rhythm so that it matches. It's the same shape. The only difference is instead of hitting this B flat first, it goes straight down into this A natural. That's the only difference melodically. And then, of course, I'm experimenting with this. I don't know. I just go double time here. I'm trying to figure out if it feels too jazzy or if it's even realistic on the chimes, because that's pretty fast for a chime player. I don't know. I need to sit with this one as well. But let me play this section for you, and I'll just zoom in on this line so you can really follow it. And you also get the marimba here so you can follow the new melody as well. And let me know what you think. So what do we think? I think it adds something. I think we've done some good work today. I am going to end it here because I don't really have anything to do at this moment. I need to figure out what I want to do next, because I'm reaching a point where I'm finding some limits of what I feel capable of doing, but there's still more that I want to do. So I really need to think about things I can improve with this piece. There's definitely some work to be done in this trumpet breakdown section right before the major section. Honestly, this Eye of the Storm section I'm quite happy with, but I'm sure there's something I'm not thinking of that can go in this section. And that's true about every moment in this piece. Additionally, I kind of want to look into some new software. Of course, I recently got Cubase for mixing and all my production needs with this. And if you watched Beauty in the Dark, which you should, that's what I mixed that final audio with, and that's really all I've used it for. I want to explore more of that, and with that, I want to look at Dorica, which is, of course, the notation software that goes along with Cubase, and I want to look into it and see if it's something that I can move this to, and maybe it'll make my life a bit easier. But that's going to have to wait for next time. And I'll see you then. Bye-bye.